Good morning, everybody, and thank you for coming. My name is Zhi Lu. Here, I would like to ask you to think about this question. If you are going to play a bug walk, it may be a string walk, a noggin walk, or even an ensemble walk. How would you feel them and play them? Okay, next, I'd like to introduce an unforgettable experience which came from a piano solo piece I prepared for the concert recently. Bach's Toccata 912. Okay, as we all know, Bach is an old, outstanding German composer. He has composed more than 1,000 works in his life. Work 912 is one of his works. The first time I heard this talk was at a low point in my life. At that time, I found that I couldn't calm down when I practiced piano. Sometimes I even seemed impetuous. Played I played some works mechanically, just like a puppet without thought. Fortunately, Bach's work made me go out of the shadows, and even for 2 years, I only listened and practiced Bach's works because it made my mood more comfortable. It felt like a cool breeze in the summer. Now, for the coming concert, my professor and I both choose Bach's Toccata 912, which makes me feel that it is a kind of a fit between the teacher and me. But this work is not as simple as I imagined. In the first week's piano class, I didn't play this piece well. The main problems are the wrong tone and the incoherence of the piece. These problems may be caused by weak mental perseverance, and because I can run a complete race without the mental stamina of the marathon. So, before the second week of piano lessons, I make a strict practice plan. Okay. The first is to solve the problem of mispronunciation. I use two ways to solve my mispronunciation. One is to read music without piano. The other is to practice slowly. In terms of reading music score, I use leisure time like taking the subway, outdoor sports, and resting at home to complete the practice of score reading. It is not difficult to find that I will avoid using the piano when I read the score, which can make me concentrate more on the notes of the score. You know, at this time, the brain is like a spotlight, just shining on the notes. In terms of slow practice, this is a good way to train perseverance. At the same time, we can consolidate the wrong sounds in the music reading practice by slow practice. Of course, there may be a disadvantage in slow practice, which is destructive to the music. I mean, when I play this piece with slow practice, it may lose its singing quality because of this practice. Using this practice for a long time may lead to boredom in a piece of music. However, even so, there is still a remedy to solve this problem, I choose to use Hanno's book. I will use the hunting figure training method to slowly play from the first to the 15th. Please listen. Okay, I will do this training twice a day. After a long time of practice, I find that my spirit and perseverance are not only stronger, but also my endurance is improved. After doing this exercise every day, I will play the toccata slowly once. Then mark the place where there is a problem and break through one by one after the slow practice. Finally, in the second week, when the professor was satisfied with the effect of this week's class, I also thought that this kind of if effort was worth it. This is my experience. This is my experience in practicing toccata. Next, I will introduce this piece from the playing technique. Okay, um, I divided this toccata into 6 parts to practice. The first part is bar 1 to bar 10. Is ascending musical scale starting with A. Here, we need to pay attention to the chord part composed of the right hand and the left hand. At the same time, from the first bar to the fifth bar, there is such a musical scale style melody, and the first tone of its musical scale will be lower than the first tone of the previous group. Here, I think these musical scale are like wines of grapes. Look, they mm, um, they grew up on fences of different heights, and then they produce outstanding and rich fruits. These fruits are like the harmonies behind these musical scales. They change from 1 to 2, 3, and finally to 4. Please listen to the audio. Okay. In the second part, the professor told me about the characteristics of the musical genre of a toccata. When the figures move rapidly, the touch of the key should be decisive rather than hasty. But the professor told me that not all places should be handled in this way. For example, all the eighth and 16th notes at the beginning of the third beat here need to be played for a little longer time. This kind of feeling is like the way of performing a minute and first moving a smaller stipe slightly, and then the other foot follows the one that has dipped over or listen to this part. Okay, um, listen. Okay, let us listen. Okay, then there will be a lot of the alternating melodies like 17 bars to 22 bars at first. My feeling of playing is just a feeling of um, dialogue, but provided to the band that this sense of dialogue is not very natural. So the professor asked me to play only 16th notes in each bar and only eighth notes in each bar, which make me feel another kind of a dialogue, which isn't singing but playing. And listen to, okay, let's listen to this part first. After the active sector, the second part is an adagio movement, which is the third part of the work. In this part of the practice, I I added the pedal, but I use the pedal very carefully because there are many musical scale style melodies, second in, intervals, and some discordant intervals in this part, so I can't let the pedal make their voice muddy. This soothing melody continues into the first half of the first beat of the 18th bar, and then the second half of the beat enters the fourth part, which is an illegal part, but it is not as lively as the second part. It is more like a fugue, which has the same presentation phrase and interlude as the fugue. In the presentation phrase, the theme is sung and melodied successfully in the main and sub, sub, subordinate tones. In the interlude paragraph, there are usually some modulations. The theme is no longer complete. Okay, finally, after a series of fast and slow sections, I I entered the sixth part of the song, which is also my favorite part. The reason why I like it is that it gives me a firing feeling, like a tap dance. However, difficulty of this part is also a highlight of the song. It needs to um, rigorous and listening key touching requirement. So the previous training of the honey figure endurance helped me to finish this part better. Finally, this hard dance continued to 265 bars. The next part made a sound which technical difficulty. No matter the speed, figuring or music lines were not easy to grasp. So I used my left hand and the right hand to practice this part separately. Finally, with the help of a professor, this difficult part was solved. The above speech is what I feel when I practice Bach toccata. Although I have experienced hardships in the process of practice, it is because of these difficulties that I find it difficult to raise this song. Thank you very much for listening. Next, I'm glad to hear some questions. Thank you.